is Craig Locicero, and my co-host Bill Shields, the Minister of the Collective Conscience. How you doing, Bill?
Hey, Craig. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. We're actually going to do our first Omega Wave show that's been broadcast together in quite a while. I've been very busy on tour for weeks here, getting what I can do when I can do it. And today I was especially excited because so much has been going on, so much crap in the world, and I only get to watch it from afar. I get to the internet when I can, get to a newspaper when I can. But as soon as I got home, I delved into everything out there, and I couldn't help but notice that Anonymous and our buddy Mr. Axe have been making more and more headlines and causing more headaches and weaving their way into the worldwide interweb. And I figured that everything should be pushed to the side. Besides this show, talking to Mr. Axe today, this is probably the most important thing that we've done because it's up to the moment and it's very relevant. And I think I can't wait to ask some questions and see what he's got to say. Hey, let me ask you guys, are you guys lighting cigarettes in the background or something? What the hell are you doing? Quit playing with a lighter. I hear a lighter flicking in there.
It was actually a pin. I was going to take notes.
Oh, well, you might need to take notes because I think this is going to go really fast today.
Well, we put up, both of us put up on Facebook, 2 hours ago that we're going to pre-tape today with Mr. Axe. And if you had any questions for Anonymous, send them in right then. I've gotten over 250 emails since then, and so I was going to try to jot down some notes so I can make sure that we get all the questions answered from our wonderful listeners. But I think
we'll get what we can get, right? I mean, you can't make any promises because I think the information that we're going to ask on a lot of levels can't be just jumped across and spat out that quickly. I think some of this stuff is going to deserve a few minutes, and we can't take days to do this. But I got some really good questions. I'm sure you got some really good questions, and it's as good a time as any to introduce our friend and member of Anonymous, Mr. Axe. How are you today, Mr. Axe?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, man.
Good deal.
All things considered, I always say. I mean, I got things going on in my life, but they're minuscule and not important compared to the greater picture of humanity at large here.
Well, like I said, as I explained in my first visit here, I'm sure you're beginning to understand that Anonymous is an idea more than a group with a leader, and I'll endeavor to answer your questions as best I can. I mean, I will answer them as one member of Anonymous. Please don't, and anybody who's listening, please don't think that I'm pretending to speak for anybody other than myself. And who I am is a committed member of Anonymous to the fights that I choose to be involved with.
Fair enough. I know that since then and before then and it's going to be even more so. I mean, you guys definitely don't have the press, the U.S. press at large, buddying up to you guys and really acknowledging your legitimacy. I think that the way everything's being put out there is that you guys are some sort of virus and you must be wiped off the face of the earth and the internet. And, I honestly, going into this whole thing with speaking to you the first time, it took more of a center point of view on the whole thing, not too far one way, not too far the other way. But, after doing my research and watching everything that I think has been happening and the way the propaganda has kind of been pushed on both sides, because let's be honest, Anonymous is propaganda itself. But that's what everything is.
Well, no, I don't mean to interrupt, but propaganda, if I may clarify, not so much propaganda. Anonymous is just about the free and open exchange of information among people, and that threatens a lot of people who have things to hide, people who are getting over on you and me. So it's not like I'm here to disseminate, to deceive anybody, because I think that word kind of implies deception, and we are the antithesis of that. We're trying to be crystal clarity. You know what I mean?
Oh, I get that, and I'm not saying you definitely are a propaganda machine, but everything the free and clear speech and everything like that. That's wonderful. And I'm not even coming down on you right now, Mr. Axe. I'm just throwing it out there that if there is something that somebody's trying to make a point of, and they're throwing it out on the internet, and it's being put out there in a message form, and it's being circulated as viral. You call it what you will, but it is a propaganda by that definition. It's trying to communicate that idea, but propaganda is thought of as something negative because we obviously think of like Nazi propaganda and political propaganda, but I don't mean it like that. I just mean that to get it out there and circulate it on the internet is basically you're advertising.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Advertising free thinking,
right.
Killer. Advertising breaking down oppression, awesome. Advertising tearing apart corrupt religions that aren't really religions, fantastic. But it's all propaganda.
Yeah, I understand. Free exchange.
Free exchange, propaganda. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Anyway, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Have at it. Have at your first questions.
Okay. The big question, the one that has been asked more so than any other, is the November 5th operation. But we're going to save that one because that's the one everybody wants to know. So you want to hear that one, stick around for about an hour and you'll get the answer. Right now, I want to talk about what's going on with BART in San Francisco and that whole situation. And now I know Mr. Axe is not partaking in this operation. He told us this in the pre-interview. I'm just being honest with you. But Mr. Axe, could you tell us what you know about what's happening with BART?
Sure can. The group of anonymous members who chose to take this on, their message is simply that the information first of all, it started out as a protest against some questionable shootings that took place by the BART police. Now, that's not for me to discuss right now. These shootings took place. People wanted to protest those shootings. So to sort of preempt that, BART thought it would be good to eliminate their cell repeaters on their platforms and on their trains, so the protesters wouldn't have those cell repeaters to coordinate their efforts to protest. Now, our gripe with that was, we understand it's your system and you can shut it down. Unfortunately, that shuts down 911 calls as well. So, they're sort of throwing the baby out to throw it with the bathwater, sort of being like kids on a playground. Well, you want to protest us? Well, we'll take away your ability to communicate. Well, I understand it's private property and they have that right, but to take away people's ability to call 911, another issue. Some people were really upset about that.
Now, is BART publicly funded, or is it a private corporation?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I
kind of do. It's a publicly funded private organization. Does that make any sense?
Not at all.
Clear as mud.
It's perfect. But we live in California, so I get it.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, the powers that be there.
They have to continue with the question about BART. The actions that took place were, they have a website called My BART. And I'm not a member of it. My wife is. I believe it's for discounts. You can plan your travels on BART with it. I believe. I don't know for sure. Anyhow, what the hackers did is they got into the system and they found out that whatever information the people chose to share with BART, their name, password, obviously, and email address, was not encoded, not encrypted, and was so simple to get at that like an 8-year-old with an internet connection could have got it. So their argument is, you owe a better protection to your ridership. They deserve an encrypted website. They deserve a safer place. If they're going to give you information, they deserve one that's not going to be hacked by an 8-year-old. And how do you show that? By hacking it, unfortunately, and that's what they did. Like I said, I'm not involved. I didn't go to the protest, but my wife's information was spilled out, in this dump of information. It didn't bother her at all. She just changed her passwords. There's other people who reacted differently, though.
No, that's a big deal. But that seems to be the going trait here, and it definitely happened with Sony, and that seems to be why you guys came after Sony. It's happened with Bart. That's just one of the things that's happened with Bart. It's happened so many times recently, and it's happening with Facebook. They're obviously selling off information to Facebook, which we'll get to. That's very disturbing. Now, the other thing with Bart that you mentioned is the mistreatment by the Bart police of the patrons a lot of times. I mean, but to anyone who's never ridden on Bart, and that would be most of you because not everyone lives in the Bay Area. It's not as bad as the subway most of the time in New York City or even the tube in London, but it does turn into a bit of Night of the Living Dead once you get to past a certain hour, and your drunks and your criminals all come out and they're looking for trouble. So there's to that defense, and that's as far as I'll ever go with the way the Bart police have to deal with this stuff, because they get extremely edgy in the evenings because there's so many things that go on and crimes that do happen. But as we've seen years ago, or a couple years ago, with the Bart police officer, thinking he was pulling out his taser, so he says, and shooting a guy to death, things get a little out of control there. And that seems to be a trait, again, that's happening everywhere in all forms of the law in the United States. Everybody's so on edge. It seems like we're not thinking straight, Mr. Axe. I mean,
I agree. I agree. It's very easy, to be an armchair quarterback, to point fingers after something like this has transpired. I understand that. And what was the other? It wasn't only that one. There was the Bart shooting recently of a gentleman, and there was 3 different stories. You remember? First they said that he shot the officers. Then they said he shot himself. Do you know the story I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And then the gun was missing.
I've only heard a little bit about this. This is just one of the many things that I should, I don't know everything.
I don't know all.
We don't know shit on the show. We just ask questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth of the matter is, like I said at the beginning, there's a few questionable Bart shootings, and because they're still under investigation, it's the last die is obviously not cast on it. And what you're saying, and look, there's a few inescapable facts. Summertime, and the time is right for a street fighting man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Say
it makes sense. Yeah.
But it happens. It happens. There's a lot. It's a symptom of a much greater ill. I don't have to tell you that.
It is. That's exactly right, and that's the thing that I was kind of getting to. It's like, this is somewhat of the way I'm starting to relate to Anonymous. It seems like at a glance it's one thing, but when you start getting into it and you see all the causes, it seems like it's starting to make sense to me as a voice of reason, of calm in the middle of all the chaos that everyone's feeling, all this tension that's rising up in our shoulders right now. Because if you go back and you look at what's being said, and I do, and I watch these things, and I'm not a member of Anonymous. It's not my shtick, man. But I got to give it a lot of credit, because it seems to be reasonable compared to the option of just going with what's happening right now, which is just an escalated chaos and tension and building towards something violent. And I like the fact that you guys, Mr. Axe, preach nonviolence, but yet to stand up for yourself in numbers. And as long as people are so apathetic, which is the thing that bothers me the most, there's not really going to be much of a change the way I see it. Now, but let me ask you, getting back to the Bart thing, what did happen, even though you weren't directly involved in this Bart organization?
What happened, I listened to the police radio. All I know from what took place, I didn't even read the news reports. I just listened to the police. Now, I remember hearing that at one point there was between 300 and 500 protesters at one of the bars. First of all, they closed all the downtown stops for about an hour and 45 minutes. Maybe it was 2 hours.
That's effective.
Yeah, absolutely. A rush hour, absolutely. And what surprised me is I heard, and they said I've heard numbers I've heard anything from 200 to 500 people. I've also heard that there were 0 arrests. I've also heard that they dispersed calmly. I heard there was no ridiculous, like, breaking of windows or something you would think of a riot. Most of them rode the BART there, calmly put their masks on, protested an hour or two, and went home. That's really all that really happened. Pardon me. Lost my train of thought. So that's pretty much it. I didn't now. If someone wants to overrule me here, I didn't hear of any violent action at all. No, I know there was no intention of that.
Nor did I this time. You would have heard about it, and I would figure that the news would have jumped on it and capitalized on anything that would have happened. But that's that's surprising to me that there was no knucklehead to get in there and do something idiotic to dumb the whole thing down.
I remember hearing the police officers saying that the majority of them are wearing the Guy Fawkes masks, which I'm glad to hear that there's that many Guy Fawkes masks still out there in the city. I wish a lot more of them would show up at the Scientology protest, but that's a whole other thing,
Well, in the end, the mask only represents, I don't think that represents everything.
No, it does. It represents them for that moment.
Yes, well, it does, and it also looks really, really fucking cool. Let's just be honest.
I'm glad to hear it referred to as the Guy Fawkes mask because it is not a V for Vendetta mask. Guy Fawkes was around a lot longer than V for fucking Vendetta.
Thank you.
I hate that the modern revisionist idea of what it's about. Just my 2 cents. I'm not a member of Anonymous. I like history, so there you go. That's my 2 cents on it.
Well, it is a great movie, and that movie made an impact on me when I watched it, and it still sticks with me today. And the fact that sometimes people are willing to die for what they know is absolute and to be right can go both ways. It's not just the extremist, religious fanatic that's thinks you're going to meet their maker and everything else.
Look what happened in Norway.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that goes the wrong way. Exactly. This guy believes what he did. This guy was trying. That is a whole other subject. I just got to say, since you brought it up, that I walked that area, not where the kids were killed in the camp, but right by. It's basically where the Nobel Peace Prize is given out.
Right.
It's a very lively and beautiful central square in the middle, right by the water. Everything is just gorgeous. There's people just running around everywhere, and it's this little building where the Nobel Peace Prize is actually given away. It's not a very big building, and I got a real strange feeling when I was there. Like obviously there's a lot of history. And then I started thinking about, who, over time, who deserves it, who didn't deserve it, and then I thought, Barack Obama got one. Well, that just throws credibility right out the window.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I was like, but I'm, just on my little walking trip.
Jealous much?
What's that?
Are you jealous you haven't got one and Barack Obama did?
If I've done anything to deserve that, Jesus Christ. Anyway, but...
You've done more than Barack.
I'm sorry I brought his name up.
All right.
I'm sorry. Anyway, but
he can't solo for shit. By the way.
Exactly.
Oh, we don't know, but he can dribble between the legs.
I want to see Barack do a sweeping arpeggio. Then I'll be impressed.
Thank you.
I don't even do those. But anyway, come on, guys. Back to what I was saying. I've walked through the area. This is a pretty serious thing to me now because at the time it was just another beautiful place where history is made. And I just, I had friends that were very close when that bomb went off. I've talked to people that, either lived close or were close, and it's not just another act of terrorism. I think in this case you have somebody you can't call him a Manchurian candidate. You can't call him insane. And these are things, the immediate thoughts that go through my paranoid head. Like, oh, maybe he's probably mind control, or, the guy must be insane. This dude knew what he believed in. And he wanted to wipe out the Labor Party?
Yes.
Okay. So he not only did that to distract everyone over here, but, this guy was so well orchestrated and organized that he brought himself over to that camp where there's kids, the future party members are. He was trying to wipe out an idea of the future. It's as crazy as, that's as fucking, crazy or whatever, as calculated as the Nazis trying to wipe out a race. It's just, it's fucking impressive insanity / whatever you want to call it. They're saying he's not insane, but I still don't know what to make of all that.
And he was an ultra-conservative. Like, if something like that took place in the United States, it would be like Rush Limbaugh doing it, or it would be like Ann Coulter going on a shooting spree. This guy was a self-avowed, right-wing, ultra-conservative.
You know who it brings me a mind of? A Fred Phelps. I would not put it past a Fred Phelps to pull this kind of shit in the near future.
We don't bring his name up. Yeah. We don't bring up his name around here because he doesn't deserve the airspace, though.
There you go.
That's true. But I can see him pulling that kind of shit. That type, he's of that same mentality.
Well, that mentality is far-reaching and contagious, and people are just becoming cold these days, and will do things like this. And it's when it's that heavy and it's that far-reaching, there's just the numbness of it all just really just got to my core. I just couldn't believe how well thought out that thing was. It was fucking awful, and never mind the pathetic nature that it was handled by the police after the fact. It's just the whole thing's a fucking mess. But that is my point, going backwards to how contagious this whole thing is, and
right.
An extremist on one hand is just somebody with a vision on another, and that's the kind of world we live in right now.
For sure.
And this guy was a video game master, right?
I don't know that. Is that true? He plays a lot of
Call of Duty and all this stuff,
Yeah.
Call of Doo-Doo, I call it.
What do you gentlemen think about? I know that you want to interview me as a member of Anonymous, but I'm just curious, really quick. Do you think, as parents, do you think that games like that are actually are ostensibly used to desensitize a generation of people to be willing to fight?
I think, yes, but not necessarily directly. I think that connection was probably made along the way by some, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine shrinks that decided in a think tank that probably figured out that that's exactly what happens to these kids. They turn into, cold-blooded shooting killers over time, and their aim becomes better, and they think more strategically, and so they make the games more involved. I think that's a chicken or the egg thing. I think probably originally, just like the games that we saw back in the 80s were shooting games, shooting ducks, shooting, Western games. I think, they've probably, was metamorphosized over time into being what they are by the military helping it out. But I don't think that originally that was the plan. I could be wrong, but I would have to say that was something over time that happened, if I were to guess.
In my opinion, sorry, Craig, are you done?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm done.
My opinion, I think it's like you said, it's kind of half dozen of one, six of the other. The world today, in general, is out to desensitize our kids. I had this conversation with Ken Nardi just recently of Anacrusis. Could you imagine if we had the internet when we were kids? How desensitized we would be. This generation that's coming up of kids on the internet who can find everything from beheadings and murder to the most perverse images and videos you could ever want. I found a hustler when I was 14 and fucking it blew my mind. I didn't find any bestiality, but it's all out there for our kids anymore. And
But here's the thing: is as parents, it's our job to guide them. The good stuff is out there too. The truth that the machine is not willing for you to find out is out there if you're willing to take some time and some perseverance to find the truth and educate yourself. So yeah, there's bestiality on the internet, but there's also truth that you're not going to get from mainstream media if you're willing to take the time and look. And I'm not a parent myself, but I would think that would be a parent's job, just to guide a kid, you know?
Well, I'll tell you,
It is.
As the parent of an 18, going to be a 19-year-old next, by the time this show airs, happy birthday, Will, by the way.
Happy birthday, Will.
Happy birthday, Will.
Anyways, I've took the time to go with my kid when he took his tentative steps into the internet and showed him the right things to do. And hopefully, but you can't monitor 24/7. And then we got the kids out there who parents use a computer now as our parents did with the TV. It's a babysitter. I mean,
Sure.
hell,
That's a bad idea.
that's a horrible idea. And
There's a bad idea.
and it happens all the time. And that's
Well-
where these kids are being desensitized to everything. You know, you go into a club where there's like 18, 19-year-old kids dancing. They're doing shit that I would have to get a hotel room to want to participate in public.
Tell no tales, Bill. Tell no tales. And why doesn't anyone ever talk about the good things about bestiality?
That's true.
I'm just kidding. Okay, now listen. I've got a son who's 7, going to be 7 next week. So
Happy birthday,
I
Tom.
figure, it's a big deal around this house.
I bet.
But you figure this is the crossroads for a child's age right there, especially today, because he watches me and he doesn't, he's kind of interested in the computer, but he's more interested in what's Dad doing today. Why does he have 50 emails this morning? What is that all about? And I've got to answer all this stuff every day. So he sees this all-consuming part of it. But as far as being able to monitor anybody at all times these days, isn't that what we don't want to have happen to us? So we got to put that in that perspective. We can show them the right and the wrong, as Bill said. You could go as far as you can, but honestly, Mr. Axe, I mean, we can't possibly. You can't steer them away from everything. You can't. So they're going to find if you steer them towards the good, and then they're going to, like a minefield, they're going to step on a mine and find the bad. And hopefully, as parents that we can help them differentiate what it is that they're looking at before they even see it. I mean, it's kind of like, you got to be real honest with your kids. They talk about the birds and the bees. Well, to hell with that, dude. It's moved on to different stuff now. So
the horses and
the maggots.
Yeah,
horses and maggots.
Right.
But anyway,
And the juggalos.
I want to get to that in a moment.
Okay.
They're worth one thing. But anyway, we can't possibly, stop this train as far as that goes unless the internet stops itself, which I believe is, very, very possible. So we just try our best, man. And as far as these shooting games go, my son, because that's where we really started with this, what happened in Norway. But my son doesn't play video games yet. And the ones he does do are all educational. And, every other kid at this age I know is totally flips out when they don't get to, play the game they want to play to their parents, and their parents use it as a babysitter. Alice and I have not done that. And he will get introduced to all this because every kid does. Once he goes and hangs out at other kids' houses all the time, game over. Literally. Game begins, game over. I can't stop it all. But anyway, Juggalos. Just got to say real quick, Charlie Sheen did an Insane Clown Posse show. He made an appearance, and the Juggalos threw shit at him.
literally.
He's been rejected by the Juggalos.
The same thing they did to Tila Tequila.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Charlie
Well,
played
sweet.
it better though. I'll hand him that.
What happened? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw the video of it. He was actually catching shit and throwing it back, and he said, "Wow, this is really reminiscent of Detroit," because Detroit was a little rough on him as well.
Oh, right on.
Detroit's rough on everyone, especially the few that still live in Detroit.
Exactly.
Coming
So-
from a man who's played harpos more than once.
And blondies.
Oh,
It's always an adventure. But anyway, let's get back to asking Mr. Axe some questions here. and I know you have a few more. So let's actually get into some of these questions that people have been asking you. Bill, why don't you ask the first one, and I'll ask the next one.
Well, the big one is what's going on with the Fullerton Police Department, that whole situation, and what's Anonymous's part in what's going on there now?
Well, I can tell you what I know is it's been a couple weeks now, and there's the gentleman, Kelly Thomas. He's the son of a retired police officer, and he, I believe he was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic, and had no history of violence, just chose to live his life on the streets. The local merchants all knew him. He would sweep out the front of their places for him from time to time. He was from what I'm told, a very meek, just disturbed, sort of homeless guy who would occasionally help out local merchants. And, it's a tourist area. Well, apparently, I don't know what the disturbance was specifically, but Officer Jay Sinelli, Officer Kenton Hampton, Officer Manny Ramos, Officer Joe Wolf, and Officer James Blatney, who are all at home now on paid leave at home, were all witnessed at one point or another beating this man once he was handcuffed. Specifically, Officer Jay Cicinelli, Cicinelli, I have the address if you want it, was seen, once the man was cuffed behind his back and fully unconscious, he donned gloves, removed his taser weapon, and beat him around the eyes and eye sockets and face with the butt of the gun, fracturing all of the bones in his face, which I could produce a picture that I have here on my other computer to show you. And the man died from blunt force trauma to the head, from this beating. And there were people screaming. I mean, I'm sure some of you have heard
I watched the video.
Yeah.
I watched the video.
The man is screaming for his father. This man did not deserve to be beaten to death. He wasn't, even if he was restraining at first, that's not how you handle. How many times was he tased? 9.
Jesus.
And he was already handcuffed. That's what I get. If you're handcuffed with your arms behind your back, I don't care if you're spitting or if you're rolling around, that's not how you handle it, by crushing a person's head till they die. He was knee dropped twice, once to the nose, and the second one crushed his larynx. He literally suffocated from a crushed larynx.
Yeah, not the other injuries.
No.
That did him in after all.
Right.
And he was in a coma after that.
Right.
So he lost oxygen to the brain.
Exactly.
Well, that's something that everybody in the area should step in and fight against. And, again, if this is bad to represent people, the people that can't represent themselves as Anonymous does, then I'd rather be really bad, because that family needs some sort of help.
Obviously, I would rather have homeless people. I would rather worry about protecting my family from the occasional homeless person that might be on the street than people who are out killing at will, and can get away with it. Just killers with badges. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all law enforcement officers are like that. I'm just saying it's a hazard of the job. It attracts a certain personality, and it feeds into that sort of thing.
Sociopath.
Sociopaths. It always has. Some sociopaths go that route. I mean, let's assume that most police aren't that way. But again, I liken it to the L.A. riots and everything like that. It's like it's all just a symptom of the sickness that is human beings these days.
Yeah.
And if you're in what's the word I'm looking for? If you're in a position of power, like these,
Authority.
Authority. If you're in a position of authority and you're a scared person as it is, and you've seen things that are literally that bad, and I'm not defending them. I'm just like, it's like explaining a motive for a murder. It's like, okay, they had a motive, but it doesn't mean that it was right to do the murder.
Right.
But essentially these types of things are just going to keep bubbling up, and they seem to be happening more and more. And it seems to be taking more and more time on the show to talk about this stuff too, because this is just the authority, as we said, is just it's coming to a really, really, really bad point right now, where there's going to be more violence in the streets, and that really bothers me, man. People are going to start retaliating on these guys.
Let me ask you a question, Craig, and the rest of the guys. Obviously, a certain amount of social change has to be effected in this country. Has to be. Do we have the ability to do that without shedding blood on a wide scale?
Phew, I hope so. I hope so.
Me too.
But it hasn't. Really, even Gandhi, okay, they like to take that instance where he sat there and the hunger strike did it, but, if there was a hunger strike now, let's face it, the motherfuckers would say, let them starve.
Absolutely. All the fat people would eat for sure.
Yeah. But, I don't want to use that as an excuse to condone more idiotic behavior. Because, just like, well, let me ask you a question. Have you seen, and I think Bill just saw it today, have you seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes?
I haven't.
Well, you should. Bill, did you see it, or did you chicken out?
It was actually sold out.
That's how good it is.
Yeah,
that's how good it is.
Me and my wife were the only ones in the theater for Final Destination.
Being a member of Anonymous, I watch movies online for free, so I have no excuse not to. I'll watch it tonight.
Bad boy. Well, anyway, the movie, I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert, but once the apes become intelligent enough to reason, what's the first thing they do?
They got to revolt.
They got to revolt. They got to get violent to break away from it all. And as much as I would love to zen the fuck out and just kind of float on my magic carpet through everything, and it's just I just don't see it happening. But I want it to happen. I really, really want it to. At what point would I get angry enough where I have to use violence? Now I don't even want to think about what point that is, because I'm a pretty nonviolent person. And my violence is in my music. That is my violence, and that is my voice, and that is really my biggest revolt against society, is being able to do this and say the things I got to say. But there are people that don't have any other vehicle to get it out, nor do they have the wherewithal and the verbal skills to articulate exactly how they feel. So, yeah, people can only take so much. So I sense there is going to be some violence, and that's we have that song Overthrow.
Yeah.
Which basically describes those moments, and how do you explain it to your child? The whole middle of the song is like, how do you explain this to your child? What's going on, and how do they make sense of all this stuff? And you really can't. You just got to say, trust me and go with me, and I'll protect you.
I got to tell you, the whole idea of a violent revolution, a violent uprising at all, scares the shit out of me. Because the people such as you and I and Mr. Hacks, and we know lots and lots of good people out there that would be doing things for the right reason. For every one of us is going to be a fucking knucklehead out there doing things for the wrong reason. And
right.
And that's the problem. We don't have enough self-control as a species yet to be able to revolt, to overturn our system of doing things in a violent or a non-violent manner, because violently we're going to have fucking knuckleheads ruin it for goddamn everybody. Look at Katrina. Everything went down there, the looting, all that shit. Every time, it's like that Chris Rock bit, which this is not about race though. This is about fucking knuckleheads oh my God, we're revolting against the government. Shit's bad. We're going to take back over. I'm going to get me a plasma TV while I'm at it. It's not the right attitude. And
it's like Mikio Kaku said that we're not even a level 1 society yet, right?
Exactly. Right. That's why we can't revolt.
Can't is a word that I wouldn't use. Also the other thing that people are is extremely resilient, like cockroaches, and we seem to find a way to squeeze out of situations. Now, this whole show is about all these situations we've been putting ourselves into, and what we ask all these questions. And that is a great question, Mr. Axe. Is it possible to get any of these changes truly implemented and put into motion without some sort of violent resistance? I ask the listeners and the watchers of this, what do you think about that? Because I think ultimately you're going to have both. Ultimately you're going to have a non-violent, and then eventually you're going to have a violent every fucking time. And then back to the non-violence, hopefully, again. But that's just society. That's just history. That's common sense of the way human beings react to each other. So, can I move on to the next question?
Please.
All right. This comes from Miss Peggy Suit. No, I'm just kidding. So this one says, ask him this. There's a little pun there. When and how will it become public knowledge to find out who viewed the profiles on Facebook? And how would that inflict against this particular website's privacy policies? How much revenue do you think, Mr. Axe, that they could generate from such information?
Wow, that's a question that's all over the place. First of all, I don't understand the premise. Who's viewing whose profile is she talking about?
They're talking about, it's not a he or a she, it's
person. Yeah.
Person, yes. They're talking about Facebook and the idea that, which we're going to get into the Facebook thing really soon here. Yeah. The Facebook basically stealing information, and what I'm gathering from this
is, I'm aware of that.
What do they have to gain, and what kind of, is it a financial gain, yes, or is it just more freedom gain?
What does Facebook have to gain?
Yeah.
It's money. They sell it. It's a commodity.
Right. Do they sell it? Well, go ahead. Who do they sell it to? Not
only do they sell it to and resell it to various marketing firms and outlets, they turn it over to the government. Believe me, if the NSA or anybody in the NSA or the FBI or the CIA, if they want to look, no matter how deep you bury your profile, no matter if you're in a group and it's secret or whatever, everybody needs to know that Facebook is cooperating 100% with the authorities. For better or worse, that's what's going on. Now, that being said, there are other social networking sites that are appearing. I'm not going to plug them here. But there are other social networking sites with the same features that Facebook has that are popping up just recently in the past few weeks that have all the same features, but they're anonymous. Everything is encrypted, and proxy servers, and that's their whole thing, is they swear that's why these are started, because this information will never be shared. So you will see more. It's not so much that Facebook will shut down, but I think you're going to see people who are more security conscious. Things are going to diversify in terms of social networking, and the ones who are really concerned about the security of their information are going to go to these other sites, I think.
As they should, because it seems like convenience of just bullshitting, which I'm guilty of, which you all are, has taken a precedence over your personal information, and your overall privacy.
Right.
And going back to a little bit of what that question's asking, I mean, is it, as far as the government goes, there's no way to really know, but to your knowledge, do you know if the government would be paying Facebook, or would the government be allowing Facebook to be Facebook, as their payoff for this?
Actually, I don't know that detail, to be honest with you, but does it really matter? if somebody check or not. You know, I don't know the answer. It's just, but you know, I from the very beginning, Facebook has never been about, you know, we're going to keep your. That's not been one of their selling points, is that we're going to, you know, not try and sell you something, because that's how it starts. This is an ad-driven thing, you know, and so they see it as an extension of targeting an audience, targeting their marketing. You know, learn more about you, more and even more. Where do you live? What is your gender? It starts out innocently enough, trying to sell you something.
Right.
Then a black helicopter lands out front.
Oh, but you know, here's the thing with me in advertising. Like, it just doesn't fucking work. I mean, at least me. Like, I couldn't even tell you. You know, personally, maybe subliminally I know, but I couldn't even tell you if I've ever seen a commercial on Facebook, because I just don't pay attention to that shit. Now, but this is where they outsmart me and you and everybody else. Well, most people. It doesn't matter if you pay attention, because whatever you're into and the words that you use and the phrases that you like to use, they'll grab that, spit it into a supercomputer, and look over to your right, and then there's like all these little things that have something to do with what you've been talking about.
Exactly.
Maybe they have it, but that's the way that it's deciphered. And actually, you're right. Is over here, right? But anyway, then you know what I'm saying. It's like,
yeah, I do know what you're saying.
This, you know, even if you don't think you're being affected and you don't pay attention,
it's hilarious, because I post a lot of things about Scientology, and because the word Scientology is mentioned, the ad always appears, it seems, on my Facebook page. You know, Scientology.org. You know, with the picture of a volcano.
They'll break you in eventually, man.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I like to start off every post with the word fuck.
There you go.
Just to see what they're going to give me on the right.
Gonna give you the finger.
Exactly. Hey, Bill, fuck you. I get enough of that on Facebook, thank you.
Well, anyhow, so Bill, why don't you shoot to another question?
All right. Well, I guess we need to hit the big one, the one that's been asked more times than I can even begin to count today. November 5th, Operation Facebook. Mr. Axe.
Yes, sir.
Opinions, thoughts, ideas. Should we back up our shit and, you know, make sure we have...
My opinion as one guy is this. Things you need to look at are the fact that this quote-unquote operation was announced so far in advance. You know, I think that the whoever the anonymous members were who got the idea to do this was more about making you think about it than actually doing it. Is it physically possible for Anonymous to take down Facebook, take them offline? I don't know the answer to that question. It would take a lot, because it's such a global thing with so many servers. It would take a lot of Anonymous members working in concert, and I think even if they did get it down, they could probably keep it down for less than an hour. So my view is, what's the point? I understand why they announced the op, and just the fact that you're asking me, just the fact that that's the big one, shows that the op is successful, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the way I viewed it too. You know, and it's funny because there's like you got, again, I go back to the propaganda. Well, you have both sides of this, and there's propaganda floating around saying that other anonymous members don't condone this, the leaders don't condone this, and so it's like you know, the way I see it is, you know, hearsay is hearsay. You know, some do, some don't. But anonymous, as I said in the previous show that we did with you, is like an amoeba. It breaks apart and it comes together. It breaks apart and it comes together. Exactly. So it doesn't have to be everybody to be effective.
That's right.
To take down something like Facebook, now that would take almost everybody to really be that effective in that case, because of the massive scale of what they have going now. It's like, it's a bigger brain than pretty much any other social network that's ever existed. It is a bigger brain.
It is. It's huge. It's huge. I mean, just the actual mechanics of doing it, I don't know I don't know enough about computers to know if it's possible. I know what tools would be used by the hackers to take a shot at it. Nothing that I would become involved with ever. But I just, I think it was more of a, what's the term they use? PSYOP?
PSYOP, yes. Yeah, PSYOP. Yeah. That's the term they use.
That's my
there's no way to tell until that day.
That's true.
And I think, listen, with something like this, something can be accomplished, the hype of it can be accomplished, but if you're going to hang your hat on this as being the most real thing that Anonymous can do, then be prepared to be disappointed, because
exactly
it's just not how it's going to work. It's going to take people in general to revolt against something like Facebook, and I think the biggest calling and working force behind that is going to be their invasion of privacy that they have on everybody, and that's what people need to be educated on.
Exactly.
We're all users of Facebook here because that's how we talk to our friends. This is no one's been able to network with their friends in the past as much as they can now. So that's the good.
Yeah.
It's like I always told my wife, even with MySpace, it's like this stuff is all a microcosm of society. It's not any one bad thing, or you can't even proclaim it to be a good thing, but it's everything.
Exactly.
And there's always some knucklehead out there to fuck it up.
Of course.
Just like I said about the revolts. There's always going to be a knucklehead out there to fuck it up. And to your earlier question from the listener about, the motivation behind selling our stuff on Facebook, I just got to add, Mark Zuckerberg's not a billionaire for fucking no reason. I'm surprised he's not a Scientologist either, but that's a different story.
No, I think he's far too smart for that.
Yeah, I think you're right too. But again, we did the Scientology thing, and that was a great. If anyone hasn't seen that, go back in our archives, and we talked to Mr. Axe about that, and that was a really, really good show. And
but before we get out of here, I would like to bring you up to date on what's going on in the war against Scientology.
No, we're not done with you yet.
Oh, no.
Okay,
we're not done with you. We can go past an hour here.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Fine. And I'm going to put Craig on the spot here, because some of the things that we've discussed privately, I want to do another roundtable. The one we did with Mitch and John Schaefer was
Mitch Harris from Napalm Death and John Schaefer from the great band
Iced Earth,
Iced Earth and Sons of Liberty.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I want to do another one on organized religion, that being the main topic, with Mr. Axe, Mikey.
Hey, hold on. I just saw John Schaefer's name pop up on the bottom of my screen as soon as we said that. How's that for symmetry?
That's weird.
All right.
So we do a show on organized religion in general, with Mr. Axe, of course, Mikey from White Wizard. Mike's a hell of a guy, and he is very, very into the fight against Scientology as well. And then,
Mikey's a smart cat. I toured with him, and he's a smart cat, man. Good dude.
So I suggest I'll get to work on that one as well very soon. We're going to get these two, plus I'll get a third guest on that one, and a show dedicated to just the outright some of the bullshit going on out there in the world of organized religion.
Well, Scientology, as you know, they hunt for musicians, and artistic people is who they prey on.
The ones that are disillusioned and feeling down about themselves.
Exactly.
Maybe
sounds like every religion.
They could have got Janie Lane if they tried a little harder.
Oh man, I think I knew Janie. It was a sad story, man.
Oh. Do we know the story with that? I mean,
well, I know the story of him back when I knew him in the '80s, and I believe, wasn't it alcohol or
yeah, he
something?
was found with a half a bottle of prescription pills. They haven't said what
yet,
and a half empty bottle of liquor.
That'll do it.
Oh yeah. I
was in where was I when that happened? I believe.
You're on tour.
Yeah, I was in Europe. When that one happened, wasn't I? It was just few days ago.
Yeah.
And speaking of Scientology, I told Mr. Axe the other day, I've had occasion to run into Mr. Lane a couple of times over the years, and we got talking the last time I saw him, and it was on their downward days. It was after he had left Warrant and was solo, and he said the biggest thing, because the song I Saw Red is one of the most open, honest songs I've ever heard in my life. He comes home, his wife that he loves and adores is banging Richie Sambora. He's home from and that's what the song's legitimately about. He'll tell you flat out. He brought this chick from Pennsylvania. It was his high school sweetheart. He loved her. She was his moon and stars, sun and stars. How does it go from Game of Thrones? Anyways.
Gotcha.
She was everything, and he got homesick for her during the first tour and came back to L.A., where he had set her up in a nice place, and she's fucking Richie Sambora. And then he went out and wrote the song I Saw Red. So, just poured his heart out on the song. So I really had some respect for that, 'cause to take a situation like that and, anyways. So I talked to Janie in the later days, and I told him that, and he was like, I know, and for some reason, when I got home, and after this became public of what happened in the song, the Scientologists were really bugging me.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were like, if you've had this kind of trauma in your life, you have a fucked up thetan level or something similar. And,
something like that.
Yeah, it just... Jeez, who else are they going to prey on? I was talking to Mr. Axe the other day. The show My Name is Earl is one of my favorite TV shows. The whole idea about karma being a force in the world appeals to me as a human being because I truly, strongly believe in it. But Jason Lee is a big-time Scientologist. Big time.
No, not just big-time Scientologist. I saw an interview with him recently with an independent filmmaker who's making a movie about Scientology, and he really, the vibe I get from the upper level Scientologists that I see spoken to it's not so much that they're denying that the beatings are going on and that the things with the children and everything are going on. They honestly don't care, because Scientology teaches you if it doesn't affect you, it doesn't affect you. You know what I mean? If you aren't seeing it, then you don't know it's true.
Okay. God, perfect. Because that brings me to my point of like a guy like what's his bucket out there? Oh, Tom Cruise talking about if he drives by an accident. He has to do something about it.
When was the last time you heard about him stopping at an accident? I don't think he's ever done it.
Well, according to him, he has to do it. So
not without an agent and a camera crew.
Exactly. So with this kind of crazy mindset, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs mindset. So what you're saying is the other side of the coin is that if you don't witness it, it's not your problem.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it. Oh yeah, I love hypocrisy. It's awesome.
It says in Dianetics, what's real for you is real for you. And that means if a pink unicorn is real for you, man, it is real for you.
And that mayonnaise that comes out of the head of that... Oh, never mind. That's another...
Yeah, I got you.
Back to bestiality.
Yeah.
We've come full circle.
Really quickly, though...
That was about chicken, by the way. Go ahead.
One thing I wanted to shoot in here, because there is a lot of things the one thing that takes place quite a bit in Scientology is I explained to you what the Sea Org is. It's their clergy, if you will. And quite often when there's a family, when there's a pregnancy that arrives in the Sea Org, it's usually, there's usually either somebody leaves the church or there's an abortion. So long story short, there's this girl, and she's from Southern California, 16 years old, and she has been posted up here. I guess the parents split up. One stayed in, one left, or whatever. And this poor girl, her name is Casey. I'm not going to go into the last name or anything. 16-year-old girl, and she's kind of being, the church is shunting her off from place to place to place to stay one step ahead of the custody, and it's really a drag. So we're going to, well, not so much we, but I'm making a special protest sign for the next couple of protests, to inform this girl to, people love her, people are thinking about her specifically, because that makes it, what's real, if it's, I'm trying to make it real as I possibly can. If this girl looks out the window and sees her mom's picture on, and, please call your mom, or I don't even know which parent it is exactly, but, we're going to try and reach out to them. At least I am, just one person. This is going to be like my project for the next few protests, and see it maybe that, it's worked for other people. We've gotten people out that way before. So a 16-year-old, it's just ridiculous.
No, it is ridiculous, and that's very very cool of you, Mr. Axe. I think that's the kind of thing right there. Everyone needs to find one thing and make a special effort for it, because you can't spread yourself too thin all the time.
Exactly.
And that's another lesson to be learned by people. They get so overwhelmed, sometimes you have to concentrate. Everyone's got to fight the fight on a different front.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will tell you.
Choose your battles.
I will tell you, Mr. Axe, when I make my triumphant return to the Bay Area, I'm going to come protest with you. I'm going to come hang out.
Oh, that would be great, man. I have masks for everybody.
That's cool, because I can't find them anymore. But I wonder why. Well, can I just ask one more question that we can kind of wrap this up with and get out of the that back of the Scientology thing? And this is somebody that asks, let me see if I can find the right place to begin this from. What would it take for the American people, or any other in other countries for that fact, to get change in that country? Can we just uprise like they did in Egypt and Syria, or are we too large? Would it take a major city, all the major ones at once in each state? Would it have, or what would it take to have to happen? It's a loaded question, but I might as well ask. And we don't have, I could imagine you don't have the answer for that, but what's your opinion about that, Mr. Axe?
My opinion is you're going to find a lot more resistance to any sort of uprising in this country than you will in a place like Egypt in the third world, because Egypt is just what we saw there was basically a small group of well-armed and paid thugs against a large group of people. I think in this country, that gets back to what I was asking you before about the bloodshed. There's so many people, who are part of the law enforcement incarceration system that I think after a time, it's not going to be a problem for them to shoot American citizens. So how do we fight that? How do we affect a positive change without it going that way? I don't know, but believe me, I am on the research team to try and answer that question out, because violence is not the answer. If you come away from anything I'm saying, violence is not going to achieve us our goals in any way, shape, or form. And I think violence and the talk of violence is the tool of the other side, and it's fear mongering. And to ask this person's question, I don't have an answer to this person's question. All I can say is, it starts at home. It starts, in your own little corner of the world and moves outward,
So
I agree with that. Well, go ahead, Bill, because I got something I want to add to that afterwards. Go ahead.
Well, I got a question and a comment from Keith that was just posted on Facebook. He says, I think it's awesome what you're doing. What I want to know is if the government tried to shut down the internet here in the U.S. like they did in Egypt, would or could an anonymous be able to open a link for free speech without a government, during a government shutdown of the internet?
Wow. I don't know the answer to that question. Some friends of mine and I have been talking about, if that were to happen, how could we do that? And there's a lot of cities are going to, not cities, but groups of people are going to, you know what a dead drop is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think if the internet ever totally went down, you would find, file sharing and information sharing by a series of dead drops, I would think. It would become a lot more underground and a lot.
So what do you say, like leaving a gig stick at a certain spot?
Exactly.
Okay.
Did I send you the video about how to do that?
I saw a video of that on Facebook just the other day.
Yeah, I may have been out of town. I lost out on a lot of pertinent information.
Yeah, there's been about, I don't know, 20 of those in the city put up in various locations. And the folks that use it share everything from games to porn to a lot of things. From what I hear, I've never actually accessed one, but it's like our own little internet. Does Mr. Obama have a switch? Can they just turn this thing off?
I think they can. I'm almost positive. I mean, but there's always going to be a way to hack into it, and that's the brilliance and resilience of these human beings. Again, I mean, you can figure out a way to turn it off. You can figure out how to turn it back on.
Yeah.
I think the only thing they could really level the playing field would be a lot of what are those EMPs.
Yeah.
Oh no! If that goes down, yeah, that would be like what the sun can do to us. It's like there are ways, natural and unnatural, to literally shut down, all electrical currents being able to even be circulated. So that would tend to really fuck this thing up.
Do you think our own government would detonate an EMD to shut down? Would false flag it? You know what I mean? And call it something else and do it. Kind of like what some people think happened on 9/11.
In a fucking heartbeat.
That's a whole nother show. But yes, I do if it gets out of hand enough. And that brings me back to what I wanted to answer or say about the question that was asked 2 questions ago about is it too big and would it work? In my opinion, the only thing that's really going to work against the hand, if we want to bite the hand that's feeding us, so to speak, feed the hand that bites us, or whatever you want to say to it. The only thing I think is going to work is going to be a massive movement, and it does start in your corner, but there has to be a lot more trust and organization in that trust to pull together something like that, and that's, nobody wants to be a particular leader, or no one wants to stand up as a leader, but it's been also proven that human beings are inherently, kind of like a chicken running with his head cut off if there's not some sort of leaders of this stuff. So I think even in America especially, it would need to be a greatly organized situation. It's going to get violently resisted because the way that our soldiers are programmed, and a lot of them don't even know when that switch comes, and then boom, they're in it. They just have to turn around and shoot who's running at them. So I mean, it's a deeply complex question that I don't think anyone has an easy answer for it, but if anything that my brain is really dwelling on today is, after talking to you, Mr. Axe, and everything that we've been through here, is that, as much as we want an unviolent solution, violence more than likely will rear its head coming from all angles on this one. If we really want to stand up against it's hard to call our government oppressive to its own people, but it's delinquent at best. I mean, it's getting to a point here where, with our economy and everything else that's happening, and
we have to evolve, Craig. We have to evolve.
We do.
Now
we do.
We have to evolve that need for violence, that bloodlust, if you will. I don't know. We have to evolve away from that and look at other things.
Well, violence begets violence, and that's
exactly.
really simple and stupid and retarded thing to say, like a cliche always is. But really, there's some truth in the cliche.
Absolutely.
And yeah, but that's what I think, though. I think, and I could be projecting, but history tells us again that if we're a nonviolent sit down organization, and we don't move our asses to the beat of their drum, then they will come in with violence, and then everyone freaks the fuck out, because no one's going to want to get blown away by a high pressure water hose down the street.
No,
I mean, there's no one wants to suck up tear gas and just say, I'm cool, man. It's like
we have to evolve, man. We have to evolve now.
My friend in Australia, Francis, said he had a great quote the other day. He says, "Humans are a virus with shoes." And I said, Well, you got that right. And all I added to that is, oh, yeah, if you can afford the shoes. But, yeah, the humans are definitely more of a problem than a cure to this whole thing. But we got to find our own cure, everybody. I mean, we got to work together on this one. And that's, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking to Mr. Axe. That's why we do this show. We had questions and we don't have the answers. And, that's what the Omega Wave show is all about. And I think I learned some stuff today.
And that's good because we only have 5 minutes left. If you want to give us a quick update, Mr. Axe, on what's going on with Chinology there in San Francisco.
What's going on in the big picture with Chinology right now is there was a guy who I mentioned last time. His name was Marty Rathbun. He and another gentleman had to do with the hiding of the church was complicit in a murder over a decade ago. When these gentlemen were employed by the church, they destroyed the evidence. Now that he has left the church, Marty specifically, he is running his own quote-unquote independent Church of Scientology. Now, there's a lot of speculation about, if this guy's on the level, or whatever. It's still Scientology. It's still poison. We ain't down with it. But it's funny and amusing because the cult of Scientology, the one that's run by David Miscavige, has literally moved a group of people into a house across the street from him. And a lot of very entertaining videos being generated by the interplay between these two groups of assholes. So, we're getting a lot of entertainment value there. But in terms of the war against Scientology here in the Bay Area, all I can tell you is it's shrinking. We've done away with Mountain View. On the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, when the Scientology org used to be booming in downtown San Francisco, it's a ghost town. Like I said, they have to send this 16-year-old girl, Sea Org staff member up here to help run things because they're just shrinking. We've really hit them. When you have a 16-year-old wearing commander's bars and a naval uniform, walking around this place being saluted, it's just a joke, man. It's comical, but that's all they have left. We're taking their numbers, and here in the Bay Area, we're being really effective.
Awesome. Craig, you want to sign us off for the week?
Yeah, I do, actually. All right, everybody. Well, it's great to be back for a little bit. It looks like I'm going to be back for longer than I thought I was, because my European tour has just been canceled as of yesterday. So the good news is that I'll be around to do these shows, pay attention to the issues, because things are heating up, and I like to do that. The bad news is that I won't be doing that from Europe, where I should be. But that being said, we'll put together some amazing shows, and we'll be talking to you all very soon. And I really, really want to thank Mr. Axe today for being very forthright and honest, as usual. And, it's not like you pretend like you know it all, and I really love that about what you're doing yourself and what you stand for. That you're here to to learn as well, man, and represent yourself well.
Thank all of you for having me back a second time.
You seem like a really good humanitarian to me. So if the rest, you're at least that yourself.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Well, right on, and we'll see you guys all next week. And I believe we're going to have. We're going to have Chris Contos.
Yeah, Chris
Contos,
week.
Is that right?
Drummer extraordinaire, going to be talking about Artists for Rescue, the Alliance for Artist Rescue, and what he's doing with that. So it's going to be a great show right here on Skull Records Radio, the Omega Wave Show. See you next Sunday.